Well, again, just to reintroduce myself, my name is Michael Aquino. I am a retired colonel in the Psychological Operations Branch of the United States Army, and hold the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Political Science from the University of California. And I also have had considerable experience in the realms of initiatory occultism, you might say, and religion and metaphysics. As one of the highest members of the original Church of Satan, and later on the founding high priest of the International Temple of Set. So those are sort of the big benchmarks. But what I can be most useful, I think, to your audience and to you is to try and get beyond all these labels and simply get to the root of the issue. We live in a very confusing world, obviously, and it gets more confusing every day. And of course, the big question is, where do we go for the truth of all this, and what can we make of ourselves? How are we supposed to grapple with this? How are we supposed to behave intelligently so that we aren't just simply running in circles like ants in an anthill that's just been kicked? So I think that probably the way to start is to recall that back in 1968, when I was first commissioned as a second lieutenant, I had asked for, and the Army sent me to psychological operations officer training at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Now, this is probably one of the most obscure fields in the U.S. government inventory, and it's quite overlooked, really, when people get all wrapped up in intrigue ideas about the Central Intelligence Agency, the National Security Agency, and so on. And fun and games between these agencies and the KGB and MI6 and so on. So the whole point of the operations at Fort Bragg, which falls under the heading of Special Operations, is that we are dealing one step back from what people perceive. This is the realm of the generation and creation of actual ideas which govern human behavior. And the first thing that you find out when you start going through this kind of an educational process is that almost everything that you read is bullshit. Almost everything that you hear and see is bullshit. And I don't mean this pejoratively as much as to say that everything has a motive behind it the way it's presented to you, and it's to get you to see things or believe things in a certain way. So to assume that you are getting objective truth or objective information is an uphill fight. And there are a number of ways that you can go about it, but it isn't going to be handed to you on a silver platter, because every time you turn on a news program or listen to somebody who professes to be an expert commentator or a political statesman, you're being fed bullshit. It's just a different kind with a different agenda, and you have to step back one level and find out what that is before you can react intelligently to it. My life has been an adventure in trying to get beyond the bullshit, to transcend the bullshit, to become an educated person, a wise person, and then a person who can communicate what I've learned to other people, which has taken me about 17 books to do. But I think I've done a pretty good job of it. Once you have realized that you are swimming in a sea of deception, and this is a little bit, as a matter of fact, like the movie The Matrix. The question is, well, what happens when you take the red pill, so to speak, and you transcend the bullshit, you get beyond it? You find yourself as an actor, to the extent that the government has credentialed you as an actor. You are both a great asset and also a great danger. You're a great asset because now you're a manipulator. You can get behind the situation and you can control it. These are psychological operations, black ops. The danger is that since you yourself are beyond the control of these operations, you can become an independent force of your own, and therefore you can't easily be controlled by others. Well, again, just to the whole area of psychological operations in the United States government, and of course in areas like Britain overseas and the Soviet Union and the Russian Federation, is a very murky area, and one in which there's been a lot of controversy and a lot of skullduggery. So once you find yourself in a situation like this, and then you are also in the area of metaphysics, you've gone beyond conventional religion, then you are also somewhat beyond the pale of another one of society's big control measures, which is, of course, religion. We are now today in the grip of many conventional religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Confucianism, the Hindu religions, and so on. And these are huge psyop machines that are used to govern a large number of people. In a way, this is sort of somewhere between pathetic and entertaining. The important thing here is that you step back one level to the control level, and then this is what you realize, that these are all selling devices to control people. We have, for example, here's another concrete example. In the U.S. Army, and probably in the British Army, we have a corps of chaplains. These are commissioned officers who wear little crosses on their uniforms, and these are the Catholic and Protestant and Jewish chaplains who go with troops, to combat and so on, and they're generally held in sort of popularly high regard. What people don't understand, again, but what PSYOP does, and it's another reason that we're considered to be as dangerous as we are because we see these things, is the Corps of Chaplains is a control device to do three things. First, it convinces soldiers to go out and kill people that they have no reason to kill, simply because they're ordered to do so, and to do so with a clear conscience, despite things like Ten Commandments and Golden Rules and things like that. So the first thing is to say, God, whatever your God is, isn't going to mind if you go out and kill people because you're told to do so, even though they've done nothing to you. So you can bomb them, or you can shoot them, or you can blow them up with a clear conscience, and in fact, it's even considered to be virtuous. Because we say so, because we're the spokesman for El, for the God, or for Jesus, or for Mohammed. Then, mission number 2 is to convince the soldier that he should go out and risk his own life and take a risk of being killed himself, because if he is killed in the service of God and his country, he will go to heaven. That's a qualification. That's an admission ticket, like getting into Disneyland. So you can go out and do something dangerous and get killed, and it's okay, because you'll be taken care of if you do it when we order it. The third mission is to keep the families and relatives of soldiers from being a problem. So if you have a soldier and he gets injured or killed, it's the chaplains who will go around and comfort everybody and say, well, he's with God now, he died in a good cause, he's with the angels, or if he's here now and suffering, then he's basically earned his ticket into these good graces and so on. You're seeing an institution that professes to be something very benevolent, but is actually quite the opposite. It's a control device. And everywhere you look today, you are surrounded by these. Of course, it's an old saw at this point that people are sort of kicked around by television and newscasters and told, well, you believe this or believe that. There are any number of illustrations. Take something like 9/11. Take something like the moon landing.
Can we say that?
You're told about these...
Can we even talk about that on the internet anymore?
Why not? I mean, the whole point of this conversation that we're having right now is I'm a little bit like the Wizard of Oz, and I'm taking you behind the curtain, okay?
Absolutely,
and
absolutely,
behind the curtain.
Okay.
This is the whole point of things like your entire project is to get behind the curtain, to transcend the bullshit, and to say, okay, where is truth? How can we not be led around by the nose? The airlines, I could tell you all kinds of things about 9/11. The notion that it was an Arab attack is completely ludicrous. It was a CIA and Mossad operation with some participation in it also by MI6. It had one purpose and one purpose only, which was to make American citizenry angry enough so that the United States would go and spill its blood on behalf of Israel to balkanize as many of the Arab countries surrounding Israel as possible. And that was the whole point of it, that every commercial airline flight has something called a manifest. This is a printout list of who's on the flight. The airlines are very precise about these, and the big airlines like United and American, they maintain these manifests very rigorously from the time that people make reservations to the time when they check in, and when they board the plane, it's all checked against that, and the very last thing that happens before the door is slammed shut on an airplane is that the final version of a flight manifest is printed out and passed in to the head flight attendant and say, here's who's on the fucking plane. So you know where they are and who they are. And that is what's locked in stone. Now, after 9/11, there was an initial flurry of claims that there were Arabs on all these flights and that they took them over and crashed them into things. And there were even a few tentative ad hoc flight manifests that were put out, but these weren't the actual final ones from the airlines. Those didn't surface for some years, and they were very tightly kept away from the public eye. They're available now. You could actually hunt them down if you like, and any of your listeners can too, the final official passenger manifests. And guess what you'll find when you look at them? There's not a single Arab on any of them. Not one. Zero. I think you'll find that it's kind of difficult to hijack a plane unless you're on it, right?
Yeah, there is that problem. Yeah, there is that problem. Although, okay. What about the uninterruptible autopilot? That can control the plane.
There is all four of those 757s in those days constructed by Boeing had an automatic device which was installed by Boeing, which would permit a controller on the ground to seize control of the airplane, much like the drone systems that we have today, take the control system away from the onboard pilots, and fly and land the plane. And this was originally an anti-hijacking measure, and it was, as I said, put on all of those planes at that time. That's a matter of documentation, which readers can also look up. When that happens, all of the other control systems, such as the ground-to-flight communications from the pilot, are also seized and moved to the person who is on the ground who is controlling these systems. So the pilots become essentially passengers in the cockpit. And this was, again, originally done to prevent airplanes from being hijacked. But what it also does is permit an airplane to be taken over from the ground and flown just like a drone. So this isn't crazy science. It's just a perfectly normal thing, like the Reapers or Predator drones. And in this case, the 4 planes were simply taken over. And to make a long story short, they were all flown to a almost completely disused air base in Massachusetts called Westover Air Base, where they were landed. The base had been cleared of all its residual personnel the day before. The base has large, oversized hangars, big enough to put 757s in, because the base was originally constructed for the C-5A Galaxy, the hugest military transports around. So the 4 planes were flown there. Selected members of the crews from them and selected passengers were then offloaded from the planes and used to make the quote-unquote cell phone calls. Now they could make the cell phone calls because their cell phones would now work, which they wouldn't way up in the air at cruising altitude. And of course, on the ground, there is no background noise from the jets that you would normally hear. If you've ridden on any kind of a commercial jet, you know that it isn't a completely silent environment. There's all the jet noise, that's going on around you. But all those calls are completely silent, and as one very alert flight attendant would later point out, all the protocols, keywords, and code systems that flight crews are normally trained to use in the event of a hijacking were completely disregarded. Then the calls themselves were all within a few moments of each other, which was possible when you brought all the 4 planes down there together. After which, not to put too gentle a point on it, the passengers of those planes, including the ones who made the phone calls, were murdered. And so much for that. The planes themselves were then flown later on down to Florida, where there is a place, a company that converts commercial 757s to commercial industrial versions to haul stuff around, and that was their disposition, basically being cleaned out and reused. That the original planes were probably still around as long as they're available, but I mean they were completely gutted and reconditioned and just turned into cargo devices, cargo planes at that point, if they were recycled through the Florida facility that does these things. Again, your listeners can chase all this down if they want to sort of follow the lead here.